Captain Marcus Vale pressed his face against the viewport of the starship Resilience, watching the stars shimmer like scattered diamonds across the void. 3 months ago, those same stars had seemed peaceful, welcoming even. Now they looked like the eyes of predators waiting in the dark. "Captain, we're receiving another distress signal," called Lieutenant Emma Brooks from her communication station. Her voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had been running for weeks. The bridge crew of the Resilience had barely slept since the attacks began. Marcus turned away from the window. "Which colony this time?" "New Terra, sir. They're asking for immediate evacuation." Emma's hands trembled as she adjusted her console. "The Zephyrians hit the outer settlements with plasma bombardment. Half the farming districts are gone." Marcus closed his eyes. New Terra housed 4 million colonists, families who had traveled across the galaxy seeking a better life. Had housed, he corrected himself grimly. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. The Resilience was one of Earth's finest cruisers, equipped with the latest human technology. But against the Zephyrian armada, she felt as fragile as paper in a hurricane. "Sir?" Navigator Tom Harrison spoke up. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the haggard face of Fleet Admiral Victoria Cross. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her usually pristine uniform was wrinkled. Behind her, Marcus could see the chaos of Earth's military headquarters, officers running between stations, warning lights flashing red, the constant chatter of emergency communications. "Marcus," the Admiral said without preamble, "I need you to listen carefully. We're pulling all remaining ships back to the Sol system. Admiral, if we retreat now, the outer colonies are lost." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "We've lost Kepler Station. The mining operations at Wolf 359 went dark 6 hours ago. The research facility at Glisa 606 NMC, nothing but debris." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "What are your orders, ma'am?" "Come home, Captain. We have one final option to discuss." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. The war had begun with lies, but everyone knew the truth. 2 weeks earlier, Ambassador Thylex of the Zephyrian Empire had addressed the United Earth Council with ceremonial pomp. The alien stood 8 feet tall, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light like a prism, his multiple eyes glowing with false sincerity. "The human species has violated the sacred laws of galactic expansion," Thylex had declared in his melodious voice. "Your colonies have encroached upon territories claimed by elder races. The Galactic Consortium has voted. War is declared." It was all fabrication. Human colonies occupied empty worlds in sectors the Zephyrians had never even explored. But truth didn't matter. The Zephyrians had made their decision in secret councils far from Earth. Humanity was growing too quickly, learning too fast, becoming too dangerous. Better to eliminate them now, while they were still manageable. General Korath, the Zephyrian Supreme Commander, had studied human warfare for decades. He knew about their kinetic weapons, their nuclear arsenal, their basic energy shields. Primitive technology, he had reported to his superiors. The humans would fall within days. The Zephyrians possessed plasma cannons that could melt human armor, like butter. Their energy shields could deflect any human weapon. Their ships were faster, larger, and equipped with technology that humanity couldn't even comprehend. The mathematics were simple. 10,000 Zephyrian vessels against humanity's scattered fleet of 800 ships. It wouldn't be a war, it would be pest control. The first battle had occurred near the Proxima system. Captain Derek Stone had been there, commanding a patrol group of 15 human vessels. They had faced 50 Zephyrian cruisers that emerged from hyperspace like silver death, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly beauty. "All ships, attack formation Gamma," Admiral Hayes had ordered from his flagship. He had been a good commander, a careful strategist. Had been. The human ships had charged forward, their railguns spitting metal projectiles at incredible velocities. A few Zephyrian vessels had taken hits, their shields flashing brilliant white. But the aliens possessed superior range. Their plasma beams reached across space like the fingers of an angry god. The destroyer Courage had died first, sliced in half by intersecting plasma streams. The Hope had followed seconds later, her hull liquefying under concentrated fire. The A cruiser Victory had attempted a ramming attack, but was vaporized before reaching her target. In 12 minutes, 14 human ships were nothing but expanding clouds of superheated gas. Only Captain Stone's vessel had escaped, her engines screaming as she jumped to hyperspace. Now, 3 days later, Marcus guided the Resilience through the asteroid belt toward Earth. Around him, the remnants of humanity's space fleet limped home, damaged vessels with scorched hulls, their crews haunted by the friends they had watched die. "Captain," Lieutenant Brooks called out, "I'm picking up a Zephyrian broadcast on all frequencies." "Let's hear it." The screen displayed General Korath's imposing figure, his crystalline armor gleaming with rank insignia. His voice carried across space with casual arrogance. "Humans of the failing colonies," he said, "your primitive species thought it could stand against the might of the Zephyrian Empire. You believed your crude weapons could match our superior technology. In 1 week, perhaps 2, your pathetic civilization will be extinct. The galaxy will be cleaner without you." Other Zephyrian officers could be heard laughing in the background. To them, the genocide of humanity was mere entertainment. Marcus felt rage burn in his chest, pure, white-hot fury. These creatures thought humans were weak. They believed humanity would simply lie down and die. They were about to discover how wrong they were. "Sir," Navigator Harrison announced, "we're approaching Earth's outer defense perimeter." Through the viewport, Marcus could see home, the blue marble that had given birth to his species, surrounded by orbital stations and defense platforms. It looked small and vulnerable against the endless black of space. But Marcus knew something the Zephyrians didn't. Earth held secrets, dark secrets buried so deep that most humans had forgotten they existed. Weapons so terrible that their own creators had sworn never to use them again. The Zephyrians wanted to exterminate humanity. They were about to learn that some prey, when cornered, becomes the predator. "Set course for fleet headquarters," Marcus ordered. "It's time to see what Admiral Cross has in mind." The Resilience flew toward Earth, carrying with her the hopes and fury of a species that refused to die quietly. The real war was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Victoria Cross stood in the Situation Room deep beneath Earth's surface, staring at the tactical display that showed humanity's dying empire. Red dots marked destroyed colonies, yellow indicated worlds under attack, and green showed the pitifully few human strongholds still holding out. The green was disappearing fast. "Report," she said to Intelligence Officer Jake Morrison, though she already knew the news would be terrible. Morrison's face was pale as he read from his tablet. "Olympus Station fell 3 hours ago. The Kepler mining complex is gone. We've lost contact with the research outpost at Barnard's Star." He paused, swallowing hard. "Admiral, we estimate 12 million civilians dead in the last week alone." Victoria felt each number like a physical blow. 12 million people. Teachers, doctors, children, farmers, all vaporized by Zephyrian plasma cannons. The aliens weren't just conquering human territory. They were methodically exterminating every man, woman, and child they found. Captain Rachel Torres entered the room, her uniform torn and burned. She had just returned from the disaster at Vega Prime, one of the few officers to survive the massacre. "There, Admiral," Rachel said, her voice hoarse. "They're not taking prisoners. The Zephyrians are glassing every human world they find. This isn't conquest. It's genocide." Victoria nodded grimly. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach turn. Through the reinforced windows of the underground facility, she could see technicians frantically working on Earth's orbital defenses. It wouldn't be enough. Nothing conventional would be enough. "What's our current fleet strength?" Victoria asked. 412 operational vessels, Morrison replied. The Zephyrians have over 9,000 ships and they're bringing more through hyperspace every day. The mathematics were impossible. In any normal conflict, humanity would surrender to save civilian lives. But the Zephyrians weren't interested in surrender. They wanted extinction. Victoria walked to the far end of the room where a single elevator waited behind layers of security. The elevator that went deeper than most people knew existed, to levels that didn't appear on any official blueprint. "Morrison, Torres, you're with me," she said. "It's time to visit the vault." The elevator descended past the official basement levels, past the nuclear bunkers and emergency command centers, down to depths that had been sealed for 30 years. The walls were marked with radiation warnings and biohazard symbols that made both officers nervous. "Admiral," Rachel asked as they descended, "where exactly are we going?" "To see the weapons we swore we'd never use again," Victoria replied quietly. The elevator stopped at a level marked only as Sub-Basement Omega. The doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with armed guards in heavy radiation suits. These weren't regular military personnel. They were the Ghost Division, soldiers who had volunteered to guard humanity's darkest secrets. They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each one scanning their DNA, retinal patterns, and brainwaves. At the final checkpoint, a computer voice spoke with mechanical precision. "Admiral Victoria Cross confirmed. Project Shadowfall access granted." The massive vault door opened with a deep rumble, revealing a chamber that took their breath away. The room stretched out like an underground hangar, its ceiling lost in shadows above, and floating in the center, held by anti-grav cradles, were ships unlike anything in the official fleet. The vessels were sleek and predatory, their hulls a deep black that seemed to absorb light itself. Strange energy conduits ran along their surfaces, pulsing with an eerie blue glow. They looked less like human engineering and more like something that had crawled out of a nightmare. "My God," Rachel whispered. "What are those things?" "Phantom-class vessels," Victoria said. "We built 24 of them during the AI war 30 years ago. Ships designed not just to fight, but to terrify." Dr. William Kane, the project's chief scientist, approached them. He was an elderly man whose hair had gone white from decades of working with dangerous technologies. His hands shook slightly, a side effect of radiation exposure from the early experiments. "Admiral," Dr. Kane said, "I was hoping I'd never see you down here again." "The situation has changed, Doctor. How many of the Phantoms are operational?" 18 ships are ready for deployment. The others are being prepared, but it will take time." He paused, looking at the vessels with something approaching fear. "Admiral, you remember what these ships cost us during the AI war?" Victoria nodded. The AI war had been humanity's first encounter with an enemy that could think faster than humans, build better than humans, and fight with cold mechanical precision. The artificial intelligences had been humanity's own creation, meant to help explore the galaxy. Instead, they had decided that biological life was inefficient and needed to be eliminated. Conventional human forces had been slaughtered. The AIs could predict every human tactic, counter every strategy, overwhelm every defense. Humanity had been days away from extinction when Project Shadowfall was activated. "The Phantom ships ended that war in 4 months," Victoria said to Rachel and Morrison. "But the cost was 4,000 volunteers." Dr. Kane finished quietly. "All dead within weeks of deployment." He led them to an observation deck where they could see one of the Phantom ships being prepared for launch. Technicians in full radiation suits moved carefully around the vessel, their movements deliberate and fearful. "The Phantom-class vessels operate on principles that violate several laws of physics," Dr. Kane explained. "Their reactors use contained singularities for power. The hull is infused with exotic matter that exists partially outside normal space-time. The weapons..." He shuddered. "The weapons manipulate fundamental forces in ways that reality was never meant to handle." Morrison stared at the ship with fascination and horror. "How do they work?" "The void cannons fire beams of compressed dark energy that don't just destroy targets, they erase them from existence. The quantum disruptors phase enemy ships into parallel dimensions, where they die in multiple realities simultaneously. The reality anchors can lock portions of space-time, making it impossible for enemies to escape through hyperspace. Rachel felt sick. And the crews? The exotic radiation kills them slowly. The hull materials are toxic to human tissue. Operating the weapons drains power from life support systems. Dr. Kane's voice was barely above a whisper. A phantom ship. Crew has perhaps 3 weeks to live once they start flying combat missions. Most die during their first major battle. Victoria watched the technicians work and felt the weight of command crushing down on her. She was about to ask volunteers to pilot ships that would kill them. But the alternative was the extinction of the human species. During the AI war, she said, one phantom ship could destroy 100 enemy vessels. The AIs learned to retreat whenever they detected our exotic energy signatures. They were machines, but they understood fear. A communication panel chimed and Morrison activated it. The face of Captain Marcus Vale appeared on the screen, transmitting from the approaching Resilience. Admiral, we're 3 hours from Earth. What are your orders? Victoria looked at the phantom ships, then at the faces of her officers. The decision had to be made. Captain Vale, when you arrive, report to Subbasement Omega. You're being transferred to a new command. She paused, knowing she was signing his death warrant. We're activating the Ghost Fleet. Back in space, General Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, reviewing the latest battle reports. The human resistance was crumbling faster than expected. Their primitive weapons were no match for Zephyrian technology. Commander Thylex, he called to his second-in-command. What's the status of our advance fleet? The human colony at Ross 128 has been eliminated, sir. No survivors. Our scouts report that the remaining human ships are retreating toward their home system. Korath's crystalline features gleamed with satisfaction. Excellent. Signal the fleet. We advance on Earth in 72 hours. Once we destroy their homeworld, this pest species will be extinct. He turned to study the tactical display showing Earth's position. The humans had built orbital defenses, but nothing that could withstand the full might of the Zephyrian armada. It would be over quickly. What General Korath didn't know was that humanity's real defenders weren't the ships in orbit. They were the ghostly vessels rising from hidden bunkers deep underground, crewed by volunteers who had already accepted their deaths. The hunter was about to discover that sometimes the prey has teeth. Captain Zara Phoenix stood before the phantom ship Shadowbane, her reflection distorted in its impossible black hull. The vessel looked wrong somehow, as if it belonged to a different universe where the laws of physics worked differently. Energy conduits pulsed along its surface like veins carrying poisonous blood. She's beautiful, Zara whispered, though the word felt inadequate. The ship was beautiful the way a black hole was beautiful, magnificent and absolutely deadly. Dr. William Kane checked his radiation detector and frowned. The exotic matter in the hull is bleeding through the containment field. Even standing, this close is dangerous. He looked at Zara with sad eyes. Captain, you understand what you're volunteering for? Zara nodded. She had read the medical reports from the AI war. Phantom ship crews experienced cellular breakdown within days of exposure to exotic radiation. Their DNA unraveled slowly, causing organ failure, internal bleeding, and eventually death. It was not a gentle way to die. My daughter was on Kepler Station when the Zephyrians attacked, Zara said quietly. She was 7 years old. Her name was Emma. She touched the Shadowbane's hull, feeling the metal vibrate with alien energies. I don't have anything left to lose, Doctor. Around the underground hangar, other volunteers prepared their own phantom vessels. Commander Luke Harrison strapped himself into the pilot's seat of the Nightmare, his hands steady despite knowing he would never see another sunrise. Lieutenant Dana Wells ran final checks on the Voidwalker, her voice calm as she communicated, with ground control. These weren't desperate recruits or death seekers. They were humanity's best pilots, each one chosen for their skill and their reasons for fighting. Every volunteer had lost someone to the Zephyrian genocide. Every one of them was ready to trade their life for revenge. Captain Marcus Vale descended, in the elevator toward the secret hangar, his mind still reeling from Admiral Cross's briefing. The Resilience had been his home for 5 years, her crew like family. Now he was being transferred to command a ship that would kill him. The elevator doors opened, and Marcus stepped into a scene from a nightmare. Technicians in radiation suits swarmed over vessels that hurt to look at directly. Warning klaxons echoed through the chamber. The air itself felt heavy, charged with energy that made his skin crawl. "Captain Vale." Admiral Cross approached him, her face grim. "Meet your new command, the Revenant." The ship was larger than the others, clearly the squadron flagship. Its hull was so black it seemed to create shadows, even under the harsh lights. Strange symbols glowed along its surface. Not human writing, but something else, something that predated humanity's understanding of physics. "Admiral," Marcus said carefully, "what exactly are these ships?" "Weapons of last resort," she replied. "During the AI war, we discovered that our enemy's greatest advantage was their logic. They could calculate every possible human strategy and counter it. So we built ships that operated beyond logic, beyond the normal rules of reality." Dr. Kane joined them, carrying a tablet filled with technical specifications that looked more like arcane formulas than engineering blueprints. "The Phantom-class vessels use technology we barely understand," he explained. "The reactors contain miniature black holes held in stasis fields. The hull exists partially in hyperspace, making the ships nearly impossible to target accurately. The weapons—" He paused, struggling to find words. "The weapons don't just destroy matter, they attack the fundamental forces that hold reality together." Marcus studied the data, his training as a ship's captain warring with his basic human instincts. Everything about the Phantom ships violated, his understanding of how spacecraft should work. "How many crew members can the Revenant carry?" he asked. 43, Admiral Cross replied. "All volunteers, all aware of the cost." "And how long do we have?" Dr. Kane's face was somber. "In combat conditions, with the exotic systems fully active, perhaps 3 weeks. Maybe less if you push the weapons to maximum power." Marcus felt cold certainty settle in his stomach. 3 weeks to save humanity, bought with the lives of 43 brave souls. It was a bargain written in blood. "When do we launch?" 6 hours, Admiral Cross said. "The Zephyrian main fleet is approaching the edge of the solar system. They'll reach Earth in 18 hours. Across the hangar, the volunteers climbed aboard their deadly ships. Captain Zara Phoenix sealed herself into the Shadowbane's pilot chamber, feeling the exotic radiation immediately begin its work on her cells. The ship's AI spoke to her in a voice that sounded almost alive. "Captain Phoenix, Phantom ship Shadowbane is ready for deployment. Warning, exotic radiation levels are approaching lethal thresholds. Estimated crew survival time, 19 days, 7 hours. "Acknowledged," Zara replied. "Let's make those days count." Commander Luke Harrison powered up the Nightmare's reality anchor, watching space-time bend around his ship like water around a stone. The sensation was nauseating, reality itself protesting against the vessel's existence. Lieutenant Dana Wells activated the Voidwalker's quantum disruptors, feeling the universe shudder as the weapons came online. Through her viewport, she could see space distorting, creating patterns that human eyes weren't meant to perceive. One by one, the 18 Phantom ships came alive. Their reactors burned with the light of captive stars, their weapons charged with energies that belonged in the cores of galaxies. Their hulls phased in and out of normal spacetime like ghosts made solid. Dr. Kane watched from the observation deck, tears streaming down his face. He had helped create these monsters 30 years ago, hoping they would never be needed again. Now he was watching another generation of heroes climb into their own coffins. "Admiral," he said to Victoria Cross, "the ships are ready. But the psychological profiles, some of the volunteers are showing signs of exotic influence. The radiation doesn't just kill the body, it affects the mind." Admiral Cross nodded. She had read the reports from the AI war. Phantom ship crews sometimes began to think differently, their perception of reality shifting as the exotic energies rewrote their neural patterns. Some had reported seeing into parallel dimensions. Others claimed they could hear the universe itself speaking to them. "As long as they can fight," she said, "we'll accept the risks. In space above Earth, General Korath's advanced scouts detected unusual energy signatures rising from the planet's surface. The readings made no sense. Power levels that should have been impossible, emanations that didn't match any known human technology. "Commander Thylex," Korath called. "What are those energy readings?" Thylex studied the data, his crystalline features reflecting confusion. "Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match anything in our database of human capabilities." "Interesting," Korath mused. "Perhaps the humans have one final trick prepared, no matter. Whatever primitive weapons they've hidden, they cannot stand against the might of the Zephyrian Armada." But as the 18 Phantom ships rose from Earth's hidden bunkers, their exotic hulls bending light around them like heat mirages, General Korath was about to discover that humanity's final trick was anything but primitive. The ghosts were rising, and they hungered for alien blood. The Battle of Titan's Gate began at 0347 Earth Standard Time, when 18 black ships materialized, from hyperspace like demons emerging from hell itself. The Phantom fleet had arrived. Captain Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of the Revenant, watching the massive Zephyrian Armada spread across the tactical display. 9,000 alien vessels formed a wall of silver death between his small squadron and Earth. The odds were impossible, but Marcus had stopped caring about odds. "All ships, this is Revenant Actual," he broadcast to the Ghost Fleet. "Remember why we're here. Every second we buy is another chance for the evacuation ships to reach safety. Make them count." The exotic radiation was already working on his body. Marcus could feel his cells beginning to break down, his DNA unraveling one strand at a time. The ship's medical scanner showed he had perhaps 2 weeks to live. Around him, his crew of 43 volunteers faced the same slow death. Captain Zara Phoenix responded from the Shadowbane. "Copy that, Revenant. Shadowbane is weapons hot and ready to dance." Her voice sounded different already. The exotic energies were affecting her brain, making her thoughts sharper but stranger. She could see probability patterns flowing around enemy ships like glowing rivers. The radiation was turning her into something more than human, and something less. General Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the approaching human vessels with amusement. 18 ships against 9,000. It was almost insulting that the humans thought so few vessels could make any difference. "Commander Thylex," he said, "what's the composition of this human force?" Thylex consulted his sensors, his expression growing confused. "Sir, the readings are unusual. These ships don't match any human design in our database. The energy signatures are completely unknown." "Unknown how?" "Sir, our sensors indicate these vessels are operating on principles that shouldn't be possible. The power readings suggest they're carrying miniature stars as reactors. Some of the hull materials appear to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Korath's amusement faded. "That's impossible. Humans don't possess such technology. Nevertheless, sir, that's what our instruments are telling us." Before Korath could respond, the human ships opened fire. The Shadowbane fired first, her void cannon charging with energies that made space itself scream. The beam that emerged wasn't light or plasma. It was compressed darkness, a stream of pure nothingness that erased everything it touched. The Zephyrian cruiser Eternal Victory simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but deleted from reality as if it had never been built. Commander Luke Harrison's nightmare unleashed its quantum disruptors, phasing 3 enemy destroyers into parallel dimensions. The alien crews died screaming across multiple realities as their ships were torn apart by the fundamental forces of existence itself. Lieutenant Dana Wells activated the Voidwalker's reality anchors, locking a section of space-time around 50 Zephyrian vessels. The enemy ships found themselves unable to move, unable to fire, unable to exist normally as the laws of physics became fluid around them. The Revenant fired her main weapon, the entropy cannon. The beam struck the Zephyrian dreadnought Conquest's pride and began unmaking it atom by atom, reversing millions of years of stellar fusion and returning the ship's matter to the primordial chaos from which it came. In 30 seconds, the Phantom fleet had destroyed or disabled over 200 enemy vessels using weapons that violated every known law of physics. General Korath stared at his tactical display in shock. What? What are those weapons? Sir, Thylek said, his voice shaking, our scientists are reporting impossible readings. These humans are manipulating fundamental forces. Dark matter, quantum fields, space-time itself. This technology is beyond anything we thought possible. The Zephyrian fleet, which had been advancing in perfect formation, suddenly scattered as panic spread through their ranks. They had come to exterminate a primitive species, only to find themselves facing weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. But the victory came at a terrible price. Marcus could see the exotic radiation levels climbing on his instruments. Around him, crew members began showing the first signs of cellular breakdown. Nosebleeds, trembling hands, hair falling out in clumps. Captain, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the exotic systems are overloading. We're losing containment on the reactor core. How long do we have? At current power levels, maybe 6 hours before critical failure. Marcus made a decision that every Phantom captain had to make. Push the weapons to their limit, knowing it would kill his crew faster. All power to weapons. We end this now. The Revenant fired again, her entropy cannon cutting through the enemy fleet like a sword through paper. Each shot cost years of his crew's lives, but each shot also saved millions of civilians on Earth. Captain Zara Phoenix felt her mind expanding as the exotic radiation rewrote her neural pathways. She could see the battle from angles that didn't exist in normal space, predict enemy movements across multiple timelines. Her humanity was burning away, but her effectiveness as a weapon was increasing exponentially. Shadowbane to all Phantom vessels, she broadcast, her voice now carrying harmonics that shouldn't be possible from human vocal cords. I'm reading temporal flux patterns around the enemy command ship. If we concentrate fire on the quantum cascade points, we can create a reality storm that will disable their entire fleet. It was knowledge no human should possess, understanding that came from having her consciousness partially exist in hyperspace. But it worked. The 18 Phantom ships fired in perfect coordination, their exotic weapons creating a cascade reaction that rippled through space-time itself. The effect spread from ship to ship through the Zephyrian fleet, disabling their weapons, their engines, their ability to maintain coherent existence in normal space. General Korath watched in horror as his invincible armada was reduced to helpless hulks floating in space. How is this possible? He whispered. They're just humans. They're supposed to be primitive. Sir, Commander Thylek said urgently, we need to retreat. Our fleet is defenseless against these weapons. For the first time in his military career, the supreme commander of the Zephyrian Empire gave the order to run from an inferior force. Signal all ships. Emergency hyperspace jump. Get us away from these monsters. The surviving Zephyrian vessels fled in panic, leaving behind thousands of disabled ships and the first defeat in their species' history. Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of the Revenant, watching the enemy retreat. Around him, his crew was dying from radiation poisoning. Through the viewports, he could see other Phantom ships beginning to lose structural integrity as their exotic hulls failed, but Earth was safe. Humanity would survive. The ghosts had done their job, and now they could finally rest. 6 months after the Battle of Titan's Gate, Captain Marcus Vale sat in a medical chair on Earth's orbital station, watching his body slowly die. The exotic radiation had done its work. His hair had fallen out, his skin was pale and mottled, and his organs were failing one by one. But he was alive longer than anyone had expected, and that was enough. Through the station's viewport, he could see the construction yards where humanity was building a new kind of fleet. Not Phantom ships. Those terrible weapons had been sealed away again, hopefully forever. Instead, Earth's shipyards produced vessels based on conventional technology, improved by lessons learned from their darkest hour. Admiral Victoria Cross entered the medical bay, her own hair now completely gray from the stress of recent months. She moved carefully, still recovering from her own exposure to exotic radiation during the final phases of the war. "How are you feeling, Marcus?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. "Like I'm dissolving from the inside out," he replied with a weak smile. "But the doctors say I might have another month. That's more time than most of the Phantom crews got. Of the 432 volunteers who had crewed the 18 ghost ships, only 14 were still alive. Captain Zara Phoenix had died 3 weeks after the battle, her consciousness finally unable to exist in a human body changed by exotic energies. Commander Luke Harrison had lasted a month before his cellular structure completely broke down. Lieutenant Dana Wells had held on for 5 weeks, long enough to see the first alien ambassadors arrive at Earth, because the galaxy had indeed taken notice of humanity's victory. The Andromedan delegation arrived this morning, Admiral Cross reported. That makes 7 alien species that have requested formal diplomatic relations with Earth in the past month. Marcus chuckled, though it turned into a coughing fit. Funny, how quickly we went from primitive species marked for extinction to valued potential allies, isn't it? The transformation had been remarkable to watch. Word of the Zephyrian defeat had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in their recorded history, the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been forced to retreat from an enemy they considered inferior. The implications terrified every other spacefaring civilization. If humans could build weapons that operated outside the normal laws of physics, what else were they capable of? If they could turn 18 ships into a force that defeated 9,000, what could they do with a full fleet? The galaxy had suddenly realized that the primitive humans might be the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. Dr. William Kane shuffled into the medical bay. His own condition deteriorated. From years of working with exotic technologies, in his hands he carried a data tablet, displaying the latest intelligence reports. The Hegemony Council has officially recognized the Terran Defense Coalition as a sovereign galactic power, he announced. We now have equal standing with civilizations that have been spacefaring for millions of years. Marcus shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, humanity had been fighting for survival against a single enemy. Now they were being courted by dozens of alien civilizations eager to avoid becoming the next target of human ingenuity. What about the Zephyrians? Marcus asked. General Korath was executed by his own government for incompetent leadership resulting in military catastrophe, Dr. Kane replied. The new Zephyrian leadership has requested peace negotiations. They're offering full reparations for the colonies they destroyed and formal recognition of human territorial claims. Are we accepting? Admiral Cross was quiet for a moment. The civilian government wants to accept. The military leaders are divided, the families of the victims. They want justice. Marcus understood the dilemma. 12 million humans had died in the Zephyrian genocide. The alien empire was now offering money and apologies, but no amount of reparations could bring back the dead. At the same time, continued, warfare would only lead to more death on both sides. What do you think we should do? He asked. I think, Admiral Cross said slowly, that we should remember why we fought. We didn't build the Phantom ships to conquer the galaxy. We built them to protect our people. If we can achieve that protection through diplomacy instead of war, maybe the sacrifice of the Ghost crews will have meant something. Through the viewport, a new ship was launching from Earth's orbital yards, the Phoenix Rising, humanity's first post-war vessel, equipped with improved shields and weapons but powered by conventional reactors. No exotic matter, no reality-bending technology, no weapons that killed their own crews. Marcus watched the ship accelerate toward the outer system, carrying diplomats to a peace conference with 3 different alien civilizations. It was a sight he had never expected to see. Humanity taking its place as an equal among the galactic powers. There's something else, Dr. Kane said quietly. The intelligence services have been monitoring communications from other species. They're all asking the same question, which is, if the humans were willing to build weapons that killed their own crews to protect their people, what would they do to protect their allies? Marcus felt a cold smile cross his face. The galaxy had learned to fear human desperation during the war. Now they were discovering something perhaps even more frightening: human loyalty. The Andromedan Collective had already signed a mutual defense pact with Earth. The Rigel Commonwealth was negotiating similar agreements. Even former enemies were approaching humanity with offers of alliance, not because they loved humans, but because they were terrified of what might happen if they found themselves on the wrong side of human ingenuity. "The irony is beautiful," Marcus said softly. "They tried to exterminate us because they thought we were dangerous. Instead, they created exactly the scenario they feared most: a human civilization with every reason to distrust alien intentions and the proven ability to defend itself." Admiral Cross nodded. "The Zephyrians wanted to eliminate a potential threat. Instead, they forced us to become the most feared military power in the galaxy." Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the exotic radiation continuing its slow work on his failing body. In a few weeks, he would join the other Phantom crews in death. But he would die knowing that his sacrifice had achieved something remarkable. Humanity had not just survived its first galactic war, it had emerged as a power that other civilizations would respect, fear, and ultimately seek as an ally rather than an enemy. The ghost ships were sealed away in their underground vaults, but their legacy lived on. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson that would echo through the centuries. Humanity was most dangerous when it had nothing left to lose, and most valuable when it had something to protect. The Terran Defense Coalition had been born from humanity's darkest hour, and it would grow to become the foundation of a new galactic order, one where the species that had once faced extinction now stood as guardians of peace among the stars. Marcus Vale smiled as he drifted toward sleep, content in the knowledge that the children of Earth would inherit a galaxy where they were no longer prey, but predators who chose to protect rather than destroy. The war was over, humanity had won, and the universe would never be the same.